Hi, I'm Peggy Grande, and I have been involved in the conservative movement for many, many years, and I feel so honored and fortunate to be here today with some incredible innovators and thought leaders. And so let's jump right into the conversation today, and I want to introduce you to the two gentlemen on this couch with me today. Michael Seifert is the founder, CEO, and president at PublicSquare. He's a recognized thought leader in the areas of business development, politics, and culture. He has a proven track record of growing businesses with the experience of as being the head of head of marketing for a notable recreational equipment firm with over $1 billion in assets and $3 billion in sales. He also has a proven record for leadership as the executive director of the university program for one of the most successful nonprofit organizations in the United States. Michael lived in Carlsbad, California, and recently moved here with his family to Palm Beach, and we are honored to welcome Michael here today.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And then Matt Cole is the Chief Executive Officer and Chief Investment Officer at Strive. He oversees Strive's investment philosophy, strategic positions, and product lineup. He's head portfolio manager for Strive Equities ETFs and actively managed fixed income ETFs. Easier for you to say than me. Prior to Strive, Matt was portfolio manager at CalPERS, where he oversaw more than $70 billion in actively managed fixed income portfolios. While at CalPERS, his portfolios were among the best performing in the investment industry and did not underperform their benchmark in any single year. Well, while they were lucky to have you, I think Strive is more fortunate to have you. And I'm so grateful to have you both here on the curvy couch here today in Palm Beach to have our conversation. So before we dive into the real essence of what we want to discuss today, we're going to just do a rapid fire to get to know you both a bit better. Who was your favorite American hero?
George Washington.
Ooh, okay.
He was the only man who had more power given to him that he actually turned down. They wanted him as king, and he said, "We left the monarchy for a purpose. It is not right for me to retain power." And he left the life of power as our first president to be a humble farmer. That's pretty amazing.
That is pretty amazing and a great founding for us. You?
I love it. I'm not going to give one, but I'm going to say people that are principled, that are willing to do something regardless of the consequences. Those consequences could be death, it could be persecution. Today's age, it could be cancellation. So our founding fathers, law enforcement officers, today, people that are bold individuals that are standing up to restore American excellence, those are heroes to me.
Brave. Taking a stand, and I think that's what you're both doing through your work today. What was your first job?
Car wash.
Car wash.
Washed cars.
What about you, Matt?
I worked at Target.
Target.
I stocked shelves for a Christmas season right after I got my driver's license.
Interesting. Love it. So name one thing you cannot work without.
Celsius. I'm not paid by them. They do not sponsor me. Although they should. I would be an amazing marketer for them. But I drink way too much Celsius. It's wonderful, though. Keeps me going.
All right. You, Matt?
My morning routine. Working out, reading the Bible, pray. Once I get that done, give me anything in the day, doesn't matter.
That was way better than mine. I want that.
No. And then some coffee, too.
He had the benefit of going second, right?
Yeah.
So if you could have one fictional character as your coworker, who would you choose?
Oh, this is hard. One fictional character, I would probably say, there was this book that I read when I was younger called Hatchet. Are you familiar with Hatchet? It was amazing.
You're going to have to go read it.
Yeah, Hatchet's a great book. This kid gets dropped in the Alaskan wilderness in a plane crash, and he uses more creativity over the course of a 3-month period to find his way out of the wilderness as a 14-year-old. I was always very inspired by that story. And we face a lot of problems as a business owner throughout the day, and I'm like, I wonder what the Hatchet kid would do. Yeah. So that's my character.
We're going to have to add it to our reading list.
Yes.
What about you, Matt?
So for me, our team right now is a bunch of detectives, and we're taking a sledgehammer to ESG to DEI. And I'd love to have Sherlock Holmes, the best detective ever, to even amplify it to the next level.
That'd be pretty cool.
Terrific. All right, one final question.
Yep.
What about your company are you most proud of?
This is a good one. When we started this, today we obviously have nearly 80,000 business vendors on the platform. But back in the day when we launched, we only had about 150 we were launching in San Diego County, and I remember hearing from one of those 150 businesses 2.5 years ago. She reached out, she was a hair salon, and she said, I was about to close my doors. This was my last month, unless things could turn around for me. COVID had absolutely decimated her. Or I should say the government's response to COVID decimated her business. And she reached out and she said, from joining PublicSquare, I've seen a 500% increase in my sales this month, and I'm actually able to keep my doors open. And still to this day, 2.5 years later, she is in business and absolutely thriving. So I'm most proud of that, because that was the day where we were very resolved to say, you know what, if that's the only thing we ever do, all of this was completely worth it. And thank God there's been thousands of stories like that. But that was the one that I'll never forget, and it made this entire journey worthwhile.
Yeah. Well, clearly she will never forget it and always be
I
grateful
hope,
of where that
awesome.
turnaround came for her as well. So what about you?
First, I love your answer. For me, I think you probably have dealt with this too, is when you have a mission-focused company like Strive or like PublicSquare, the talent that you can bring into your organization is just unreal. We have a team of 40 people. I know you're slightly more people than that right now, but people from all over the country that just find inspiration in this vision that want to join. And so our 40 people literally come from every single pocket of this country. And when you see the people that want to work for us, it's just amazing. And to me, that's just inspiring and shows that we're on the right track.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you for playing along with our rapid fire questions. I know we have so much more to get into, and I just appreciate you both being here. You're great inspirations. You have accomplished so much in such a short period of time. So we want to give the people who are watching an opportunity to get to know you better, how you got to where you are, and what's next and exciting that we can look forward to. So Michael, explain to people what exactly is PublicSquare? What was the genesis of it, and what makes you so passionate about helping small American businesses like the one you mentioned?
Well, for about a decade, I've witnessed as our country has really embraced an ESG-led economy. And the types of businesses that embrace ESG, those businesses are most often multinational corporate conglomerates that are largely focused upon stakeholder capitalism rather than shareholder capitalism. They've abandoned Main Street and much of American enterprise holistically. They've offshored our jobs in order to find cheaper labor. And at the end of the day, it's left a lot of American-owned businesses high and dry. And so when you pair that with kind of the woke capital that we've seen emerge, it's left this void in the market. If you're somebody who's certainly faith-driven, more conservative as a person, or more of just a free thinker, loves the country, the Constitution, the values that that wonderful document protects, you've ultimately been left out as the economy has embraced this sort of multinational globalism that's largely rooted in sort of woke or progressive values. So COVID came around. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, and we saw the effects of certain big business largely linked at the hip to big government. And they got to stay open while your mom and pop hardware shop had to close. And they were deemed essential while we were deemed unessential, non-essential, I should say. In January of 2021, we had the idea for a marketplace full of businesses, a community of businesses that would resist this ESG move. They would stick firm to the principles of excellence and meritocracy, and they would embrace an economic future that would, if we did this right, create a new American Renaissance era where Main Street thrived and businesses that had not adopted sort of the way of the progressive culture would actually be rewarded from a group of customers that valued them. Today, 2.5, almost 3 years later, that looks like PublicSquare. You can find it at PublicSquare.com. It's the nation's largest marketplace of businesses that are pro-family. They love the country, the Constitution, the values that that document protects. And you know as a consumer then that when I spend money with these companies, I'm spending money with an independently owned business. Many of them are family owned and operated. They're all small and medium-sized businesses that'll give you that sense of purpose in your purchase. It's very cool.
That's great. Well, and you probably have found something similar. There's this longing, there's this need, there's this gap in the marketplace that you're filling. And in the last year, you have $1 billion of assets under management already. So you know this is resonating with people. Why do you think people are so strongly resonating with that message and amplifying what you talked about, that need, that longing for something different in the marketplace?
ESG and DEI at its core is constraining American excellence. And so there are so many opportunities to fix this. You can fix it from the bottom up, providing great products, great great services to customers that just say, hey, if you don't want any of this politics and stuff that you buy, go do something else. It also needs to be addressed from the top down. Our country has a retirement crisis. The average 401k is about $100,000. The average public pension, where I came from, is about 80% funded. What that actually means is for our generation, like, it's less than 50% because you're paying out 100% of benefits to people today. The people in the future have less than 80%. So there's this crisis. Social Security has a crisis. We can't afford to ruin great American brands. I don't want to see Disney terminally ruined. It is ruined right now. I want to see it restored. I want to see excellence restored there. So we are trying to help consumers that have to be invested in these large companies. Most consumers cannot find a diversified portfolio of companies that are actually achieving excellence today. So we're helping them fix it by fixing those problems through your investment account and having your retirement account work for you, not against you. And today it's actually working for you, against you, because these large asset managers are pushing ESG and DEI with your money. That's wrong.
Well, and you both are showing that you don't have to pick either or, the things that I value and making a profit. You both are finding a way that you can do both of those and accomplish that for the consumer, provide benefit and align with the things they value.
Well, that's actually a great point. The part of the problem in all of this is that as people have embraced ESG, the hole that it's left is not only unaddressed from a standpoint that they feel ostracized or ignored, it's also a massive economic opportunity that's been completely squandered. If you look at people in this country that would generally say we're not a fan of ESG, so more independent thinkers, more conservative, more traditionally valued Americans, that cohort, if you utilize election data and census data, amounts for, many estimates show, over $7 trillion in GDP. Well, $7 trillion in GDP is the third largest economy in the world, and no companies are talking to them anymore. Disney had an opportunity, and unfortunately, they're continuing to squander it. And obviously, we want to see these things restored. Well, there's not only a liberating offer that we can present to the market, it's also very lucrative. And that's why I'm excited about our companies and obviously the millions of consumers and businesses we represent, is because if they lean into this and if they embrace excellence and meritocracy, not only will they feel better about their business, but they can make a ton of money too. And that's ultimately going to hopefully drive future success and growth. So, yeah.
Well, you bring up ESG, and how does Strive look at ESG differently and the shareholder activism by putting then the stakeholder first? Yeah. Explain the difference in that.
So first, it's important to call ESG what it is. And ESG is not looking at environmental risk factors, social risk factors, governance risk factors. It's actually a social political agenda pushed into corporate America. And that's important because day one of Strive, we would talk about how we're for looking at every risk factor, including all these different environmental risk factors, social risk factors, governance risk factors. On social, we think meritocracy is the right way to hire people. That's S. That actually is an opinion on S. But that gets labeled anti-ESG. Why? Because ESG isn't about looking at a risk factor. It's about a predefined opinion that you must have to be pro-ESG. And that's the problem. G is our differentiator. We're for corporate governance, how we vote, how we engage with these corporations. These different risk factors actually matter, but you can't have a differentiated opinion. You can't stand for American excellence within those different risk factors, or you're anti the risk factor. And I think that exposes the scam that is ESG. And so that's how we're different in how we think about those. And we are unapologetic in engaging with these corporations and the largest companies in America. And we're finding success and actually having meaningful change. $1 billion of assets is record-breaking for a company, but let's be honest, it's small versus $20 trillion that BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard control. But we're punching like a $1 trillion asset manager today. Why? Because the arguments that we bring, they're sympathetic to. A lot of these corporations are sympathetic to. The oil and gas industry loves us. Mm-hmm. Why? Because they've been villainized. Right. People that work for oil and gas companies, they don't view themselves as killing Americans or killing the American economy. They're providing a good for human flourishing. That's what they see. That's what we see. There's alignment there. They love that we're helping them actually find profitable opportunities and actually invest in them, because what the other asset managers are saying are basically shut down. Get to net zero by 2050, shut your business down, give the cash flows to the investors, and hey, it was great that you've been here for the last 100 years. Good luck, maybe go be a solar company. No, that's not that's not the best path for these companies,
Right.
and they know it too.
Yeah. Well, I want to follow up with that because I understand in the past year you've engaged with companies like you said, Disney, ExxonMobil, Starbucks, and McDonald's. Now, these boardroom engagements, what do those look like? Because these are typically companies that a lot of them we would think are very left-leaning. How receptive are they to the message that you're bringing to them?
I'll give you the example of Exxon. Those are all great examples, but Exxon, I think, is an outstanding example. And I think they're actually an example of a company that's standing for American excellence right now. Exxon had 3 climate activists pushed onto their board. Exxon actually stood against it. They tried to shut it down. They were denied. The largest asset managers in this country voted for those, even though Exxon said, don't do it, they're not qualified. You push these climate activists on the board, well, what do you think happens when you put a bunch of non-qualified climate activists on the board? You're going to have massive change at your company because it's at the top. We engaged with Exxon publicly. We sent them a letter, said, hey, you need to fix this problem. We talked about running an election to put new board members on the board. They actually just proactively, after we sent that letter, about 1 month after, put 2 qualified board members on their board. Well, what does that do? If you have to get a majority, that makes it much more easy to get a majority to do pro-shareholder maximization things. They did that. This last couple of weeks, there was a couple proposals that some climate activists wanted to be put onto the ballot. Exxon sued the climate activists. They are standing for, they're done with this. They're done. And so I really like using them as an example because they're the largest energy company in this country, and they've had enough of this.
Yeah. So you feel like maybe the pendulum is swinging.
I think
You're gaining traction.
My opinion is that we've reached peak wokeness, but ESG and DEI aren't dying. And what's happening is that those terms are going away. Companies are stopping using ESG. BlackRock, in their last quarterly filing, they said ESG 1 time. It was in their risk disclosures. They've scrubbed ESG, but they still stand for the same underlying principles.
Yeah.
We have a lot of room left in this fight, but it is swinging.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you. And thank you for all you're doing to advance that conversation and probably to make people think about it in a way that perhaps they haven't considered before. So I want to ask you both this, but I'll start with you, Michael. What are some exciting things your company has rolled out in the past year that's been new and innovative? And what are some things that you're looking forward to rolling out and introducing to America in 2024?
Love it. We obviously had a big 2023 as we went public on the New York Stock Exchange. So we took the company public via SPAC, and it was, you could argue, the best SPAC of the year. The transaction was really fruitful, and we've got a great shareholder base, folks that are excited about the mission as well as the return on the mission we're trying to achieve. That was a huge advancement for us. In our tech, the actual product that we offer, we launched e-commerce, and this was big because there are only a few multi-vendor marketplaces in the world today that service kind of a wide variety of different industries. You've got Amazon, you've got Etsy, you've got eBay to a degree. Target, Walmart are obviously in the digital space as well. We wanted to take our spot for this underrepresented, unaddressed TAM, and thankfully, November 1, we launched functionality that we had built from scratch that allowed for us to source tens of thousands of merchants that had signed up for our platform, for them to link their product catalogs with us and then be able to actually check out with customers in a one-cart checkout from multiple vendors in a seamless user experience. That was really big. I think we've, hopefully as a company, proven, at least in the early stages, that what took other companies tens and 20s of millions of dollars and years to do while running at a loss, we can actually do in a fraction of the time, on a fraction of the budget. We've set ourselves up well for a really exciting 2024, which includes things like further build out of product subsidiaries. So one of the exciting things about this sort of burgeoning parallel economy that's coming to the forefront is that we are learning where there's a need for competitors. So a great example, in 2023, we launched a diaper company called EveryLife. And this diaper company is now the fastest growing diaper company in modern American history. And this was because we learned that a lot of the moms in our audience were feeling like none of the major diaper brands in this country today represent them. And so they wanted a really beautiful, faith-respecting, pro-family demonstration of a premium diaper brand. We brought it to market, and thankfully, it's absolutely crushed it. Now we get to do that in 2024 with multiple different product verticals. So we're trying to build this almost factor and gamble with a marketplace at the center of it for this unaddressed market. And everything that's happened over the last 12 months has been a good sign that we're going the right direction. It's very cool. It's going to be a big year.
That's great.
Yes,
well, thank you for
absolutely.
sharing that with
Thank
us.
you.
And so 2023 obviously was a big year for you. Any sneak peeks on what we can expect out of Strive in 2024?
Yeah, I think 2023 showed something for both of our companies, that there's product market fit in all these different verticals. So for Strive, we are building the most trusted financial institution in this country based off of time-tested fiduciary principles, shareholders first, pro-capitalism, pro-meritocracy. And I think what we've done really well is get in front of the consumers. And so as we expand our business opportunities, I think you're going to see it move in that direction, more towards the consumer. So we just launched a 401k program that is live for small and medium-sized businesses. And what's interesting about that specific area of investment management is that it is horrible for the employee. You get captured in a 401k program, and you have to give your money to BlackRock. You don't have a choice. So, okay, I can either not invest or not put money in a 401k program, or I can give it to BlackRock, and BlackRock's going to push ESG and DEI across corporate America with my money at my expense. That's wrong. So we're offering that. It's a great offering for businesses, small and large. As we go forward, I think that the consumers will be able to access Strive in multiple ways and this year.
Yeah. And so those boardroom engagements are probably very essential in order to get that offering to their employees.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as it grows, there should not be a large corporation in this America that doesn't, at a minimum, give their employees the option to opt out of BlackRock and opt to a company like Strive.
Yeah. Well, that's terrific. PublicSquare, Michael, has a very unique mission, and I'm sure you get in the crosshairs a lot. So how do you overcome the challenges of the media, activists, or public figures that come out and disagree with your mission? And then I'm going to ask you the same question. Not that anybody has ever said anything disparaging or come after you, I'm sure.
Everyone loves us. No, we have our fair share, certainly, of folks that don't love what we're doing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I kind of tend to have the belief that if you're doing something that is worth fighting for, you're going to face some opposition. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that opposition can be very validating if the opposition is coming from folks that you really are not out to try to necessarily impress anyways. And so, what we kind of say often is like if pundits with the New York Times are not a huge fan of what we're doing, that means we're over the target.
Congratulations.
And thank you. Yeah. I mean, MSNBC released a whole front page on their site hit piece about us 2-3 weeks ago, and our team celebrated. And what's wild about all of that is that any time that we have opposition in the sort of public arena, it only actually grows the business. In fact, some of our greatest days of growth have been when we take arrows. And the thing we've always said is that if we're going to face opposition, let it not be because we stepped in it. Let it not be because we did something we really shouldn't have done, because then that's merited opposition. We don't want that. But if there's an opposition to our mission that represents what tens of millions of Americans feel, and what I believe to be the majority of Americans feel, and I believe the data shows that as well, then that's how we know that we're going a right direction, and we're trying to bring the country back to something that I think there's a certain class of people in this country have deemed sort of antiquated. They've said that that's not America anymore. You can't have the meritocracy. You can't have the excellence. You have to view people based upon immutable characteristics. It's like, no thanks. I unsubscribe from that system. I actually want true equality, not equity. I want actual excellence, not a manufactured veneer of excellence and progress that's not really rooted in anything legitimate. And I think at the end of the day, when I can go to bed every night and know that those are the sorts of things I'm fighting for, it makes any level of attack, like, bring it on. More, please. Yeah.
And the criticism, like you said, depending on who it comes from, that can be the greatest validation
it really can.
that you are doing something right.
Yes.
So congratulations.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. What about Strive? Not that you've ever taken any criticism, I'm sure, over what you're doing.
Every day. And we love it. And why? Because companies like Strive, companies like PublicSquare, there's a foundational principle that we stand for. We know who we are. And so that's very different than some of these large asset managers in our space that just sway with the wind. Oh, 10% of my employees are pushing me, I'm going to swing in this direction. I'm going to push these different things. Oh, I'm getting pushed back, I'm going to start swaying back. Just swaying in the wind with no actual tangible beliefs. Well, take that against someone that knows who they are, they know what their mission are, they know what they're standing for, and put them in a debate room and see how that goes. It does not go well for the company that's swaying because they don't know how to answer it. So we put ourselves out there. We go into places where people disagree with us and we engage, and we do it publicly. And I'll say that's been one of the keys to our success is people will try to put us down. It's like, let's go put us on a panel at a conference and let's just talk about it. And let's put our ideas versus your ideas and let's see where it happens. And I've done this in large investment management corporate conferences where you would say Strive's going to be, no one's going to like Strive. I look in the audience and I see heads nodding when we're speaking. And why is that? Because most people want meritocracy. That actually is a winning issue. Democrat, Republican, white, black, Asian, doesn't matter, male, female. There is not a subset of people in this country that want affirmative action. But yet our large corporations are pushing DEI. Why? Because they don't actually know what they stand for. All these studies are bunk. We've debunked them on our website. We have white papers that show why they're statistically flawed. It's not hard. This is a house of cards, so we love the debate, and that debate helps fuel our business.
Yeah. Well, before we got started, you were talking about an education opportunity you had, and as much as you're in the business of selling a product or selling ideas, you also need to be in the business of educating, because there's a lot of people who have never thought about your industry in the way you're looking at it. So will you tell us a little bit about that opportunity you had?
Yeah. So I've done a little bit of a college tour over the last 6 months. I've gone into Harvard, talked to students for 3 hours, faced conversations. This last week in Columbia University, their MBA class, and just let people that disagree with me, that I know disagree with me, just engage. Ask questions, let's talk about it. And what I find happens is they might not end up agreeing with me, but they'll at least respect what we're doing and hopefully can change their mindset that the path that they're going on is not the right path for this country. Even if we might disagree on the values side of things, we could probably agree on the actual implementation across corporate America not being the best. And I think that that's where we're actually finding success in some of these conversations.
Yeah. So I'll ask you the same thing, because obviously you're selling an idea, you're selling a product line. How are you also educating people about the importance of what you're doing?
Well, in two ways. Number one is, as cultural moments happen before our very eyes, things from the past year, like Target missing their first quarterly earnings in 6 years, which, by the way, the last time Target missed their quarterly earnings 6 years ago was right after the bathroom debacle related to gender and these social issues and things, and so they clearly didn't learn their lesson. When Bud Light does what it does and, mocks their audience, calls them fratty, outdated, when Ben & Jerry's says we're on stolen land, when Disney decides to kind of pivot their messaging toward a more progressive way of thinking about things, when banks cancel customers based upon political views, we try to capture those moments in society and say, everybody, let's pause for a second. These things that are happening are not just flash in the pan cultural moments. They are indicative of a deeper rooted problem here that looks like ESG, DEI, the broader world of stakeholder capitalism, this move our economy made starting in the 80s. And we try to use these examples as symptoms of a much deeper problem than educating on that problem. But the second thing I will say is that we never like to educate about the problem unless we're showing a solution. And it's something I admire about Strive. It's something that I'm really proud of our company, is that we like to be known far more for what we're for rather than what we're against. And so anytime there's an opportunity in society to say, see guys, this is a problem, but let's be real hopeful about the future, because we actually have solutions, and here's what they look like practically. Here's the stories we want to tell of American-owned businesses that are making your community tangibly better. When you can tell their stories and illuminate them and put a spotlight on them, it's the best type of information, because ultimately at the end of the day, the truth is powerful. It rises to the top. People, as their hearts are captivated by those amazing stories of American enterprise, and we don't even have to sell. We just tell their stories and the rest will do its thing. And so we like to inform as a company. We like to say that we're selling not only products, but a real mission that people can adopt and be a part of. And that way, they're not just forced to boycott something or unsubscribe from a corrupt system. They can actually subscribe to an amazing system that really lifts their spirits and their communities for the better.
Yeah. That's great. Well, let's talk about leadership for a minute, because nothing will ever exceed the leadership at the top of an organization. But you're not only leading an organization, you're leading, in essence, a movement. And so talk a little bit about your leadership philosophy. Who has inspired you? Who are you learning from or watching from? And I'm sure it helps to have allies and people who are aligned in the fight with you leading that movement. But talk about your leadership mindset, not only from an organizational standpoint, but knowing that you're kind of in the forefront of this parallel economy that you could talk about, or just a new movement that we're seeing in America.
Yeah. And so today, people are hungry for a cause. I think that's absolutely clear. And so it's about having a foundational mission that you're pursuing, foundational principles that you're pursuing, educating people on them, and educating people because the media will put it in a negative light. So at Strive, we're shareholders first, we're pro-capitalism, we're pro-meritocracy. The media would say, you're anti-ESG, you're anti-DEI, you're anti-woke. I never said those things. If that is what pro-capitalism, pro-meritocracy, shareholders first is, if that's what you define that as, then sure, I'm not saying that. We have a positive message. And so I think words really matter. And you've seen words definitions change, Webster's changed definitions, and so you might hear a word and you'll say, racism, well, I'm not anti-racist. And you see, well, you look at Webster's and it's like talks about equity and all these different things. Like, what? When did that change? Oh, like 5 years ago. We changed the definition of the word. You're like, oh, that's interesting. So the way I think about it is that I don't even like the word stakeholder capitalism. I've used it so much, but really it's anti-American capitalism. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's not actually capitalism. It's deprioritizing the shareholder, putting up all these stakeholders, but not even really earnestly putting up all these stakeholders, putting them up with one worldview. Mm-hmm. And so to me, you have to call it what it is. And so I view these other asset managers as anti-capitalistic, anti-meritocracy. And by changing those wordings, you can actually help educate people to say, shareholder capitalism versus stakeholder capitalism. Well, I'm pro-capitalism. There are two different versions of capitalism. Like, what's the difference? I don't even understand. Well, are you pro-American innovation? Do you think that more innovations happened in America than every other country combined over the last 100 years? I do. Do you think American companies have outperformed every other country in the world for the last 100 years? Well, you actually prove it. It's a difference of almost 3.5% a year, and when you compound that over 40 years, it's basically the difference between being able to retire and not being able to retire. American capitalism is worth defending. People are for it. They just need to understand that's what they're actually opting into when they opt to a company like Strive or do business with a company like PublicSquare. And once they see that and they see that positive mission, that positive message, it's really easy to lead a movement and actually help start a movement. And then you get more and more people. It doesn't even really matter who leads it. This movement's moving forward. And that's ultimately what matters.
That's great. So what about you, your leadership mindset? What inspires you? What drives you? What guides you or motivates you? Who are you learning from? Yeah. I'm sure you love having allies in the fight like Strive, but organizationally, but then also as being part of this new movement.
Yeah, we definitely love having allies. It's one of the most rewarding parts of this. I also think it's incredibly important because there's this network of companies in this sort of parallel economy that are standing for these classic American principles, and it's helpful for each of us on our kind of respective outposts to know that we're not alone and that there's likely companies that are going through similar challenges we are. In terms of leadership, I've been really inspired by a lot of the kind of newfound, more populist leaders in our society that are being very honest about the state of things, but also casting a vision for the future. I really admire Vivek. I mean, I have been inspired by the honesty he's brought to the national conversation. I'm inspired by thinkers like Jordan Peterson. I'm inspired by business owners like Jocko Willenick or folks like Andy Frisella that have built these really incredible, what started as small businesses and emerged into real behemoths while never losing their values. I grew up loving people like John Maxwell and great business thought leaders that would help organizations thrive because they didn't detach their values from their expression as a business. And I think ultimately what I learned from those folks in this season specifically more than anything else is that the world is so tired with this lack of transparency. There's a puppet on the stage who's telling me what he needs to hear off of a script, but I don't really know what's going on, and it just doesn't feel honest. People are so tired of things that don't feel genuine. Mm-hmm. And so I think as an organization, we try to lead with honesty at the forefront of everything we do. What are our challenges? Everybody at our entire company right now, we have 68 employees. If you go around to any of those employees right now and you said, what are the 3 greatest challenges of the business? They'd all be able to answer. That's our goal. If you also tell them, give me 3 reasons why we're doing what we're doing, they'd all be able to answer. And hopefully, that's a good sign that there's a level of cultural cohesion and real honesty at the forefront to say, if you're a part of this mission, you deserve to know what's going on in the mission. We want you to own it and buy in and really be a part of this, and then hold you to accountable to those things. And so I feel grateful that we have a supercharged movement of folks that are fighting for a better future, and they're doing it as more than just a career move. They're doing it for the betterment of their own families. The last story I'll tell is that we've got amazing leaders of leaders within our organization. A great example, our head of all of our product experience, so the head of our platform, is a gentleman who was with Target for 15 years and led product and engineering there, and finally just said, I can't do it anymore, and took a pay cut, left Target to come join us. Catholic man, 7 kids, wonderful family, and we said, we can't pay you what Target paid you, but we'd love to have you, and while I can't promise you the level of security that Target could, I can promise you passion and purpose and mission and drive. And he said, those are the things that are most important to me. Our country's at stake, we need to do this. And so I'm grateful for the band of brothers and sisters that have joined together to pull this off. And ultimately, I'm really hopeful for the future of the country, the more that I see businesses like ours sort of lead from the front.
Yeah. Well, both of you are doing such incredible things, and why don't I give you an opportunity to tell those who are watching, how can they engage with you? How can they follow you? How can they support your mission and your company and the things that you're doing? What does that engagement and connection look like?
Love it. Well, certainly grateful. If you want to join the parallel economy and shop with companies that love this country rather than work actively against it, you can head to PublicSquare.com. That is your one-stop shop for all things engagement. You can find our links to social media there. You can find our investor page there as well. You can follow along with our blog. We release updates to the platform every week, and so we encourage you to follow along with the progress that we're making as we build this incredible movement. Then obviously we'd love for you to track with the journey with some of our businesses as well. So make sure that when you find a business on PublicSquare that you love, one of our over 75,000 vendors, reach out to them. Say, we're glad you found you through PublicSquare, love what you're doing. It means the world to these business owners on Main Street to know that the American people stand with them, and PublicSquare.com is where you can get started with all that.
Yeah, and I think it's the stories which help people engage with what you're doing. The facts and the figures are one thing, but people love the stories, they love the emotion, and that causes them to engage at a deeper level. So thank you for all you're doing, and thank you for all that you're doing for the businesses who are part of PublicSquare.
Thank you.
And so for Strive, you've got the ETFs rolling out and the 401k this next year. How can people further support what you're doing, engage in what you're doing, be aware of what's rolling out and what's just around the corner for them that they can be part of?
So most Americans are invested in the stock market. If you're invested in the stock market, make sure your money's not with BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. If you have an advisor, call them up. Tell them to put your money with Strive. If you have an employer, ask them about the Strive 401k program. You need to actually vote with your dollars if you actually want to achieve change, restore American excellence. And the good news for your retirement account, if you actually restore American excellence, that actually means higher returns as well. So go to strive.com, sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is actually really valuable. It's free, and it really keeps you informed about everything that's going on in the world with related to ESG, DEI, things that are actually lowering the returns of these public companies. You need to be informed. Be informed. See it, and when you see it, you're actually going to want to help see the change.
Well, thank you to both Matt and to Michael for Strive and for PublicSquare being here today. And these are incredible innovators. They're leading a movement. They're amazing patriots. And I hope that everybody who's watching will take an opportunity to engage with them corporately, will follow them on social media, will look for ways to support what they're doing, because by supporting them, it supports American patriots all over this great nation. And so thank you both for what you're doing. Thank you for sharing your stories here today. And thank you for the opportunity to be part of this great American movement.